like to follow along the scripture this evening, it's going to be from 1 Timothy 3, 1 through 7. This is a faithful saying. If a man desires the position of a bishop, he desires a good work. A bishop then must be blameless, the husband of one wife, temperate, sober-minded, of good behavior, hospitable, able to teach, not given to wine, not violent, not greedy for money, but gentle, not quarrelsome, not covetous, one who rules his own house well, having his children in submission with all reverence. For if a man does not know how to rule his own house, how will he take care of the church of God? Not a novice, lest being puffed up with pride he fall into the same condemnation as the devil. Moreover, he must have a good testimony among those who are outside, lest he fall into reproach and the snare of the devil.
We're wanting to appeal to that last verse there in that reading, the idea of being aware of the snares of the devil. I don't recall using snares when I lived in East Texas, but we do use them where I am right now. You know, out in our world, we got a lot of coyotes and a lot of foxes, and the way you catch them is you get you a snare, which is, if you haven't built these, they're just a piece of cable. You make a loop out of it. It has a catch on one end. You take the end of it, tie it off to something solid like a T-post or a post, and you go down the fences and you find where the animal has been crossing. There's always little trails, and you put that hoop up there where they're going under the fences, and if you're lucky, when you come back the next morning, there'll be a coyote with his head hung in that thing. If you're real lucky, he'll be dead. If not, you got to shoot him. But we caught 9 in one night one time out on our big place. So this is pretty common. They kill sheep, they kill goats. I haven't lost any baby calves to them, but they're a problem. And so the way that you catch something with a snare is you set it up in a way that they cannot see it. I'm going to take a wild stab and guess that a few of you guys and gals might do some fishing out here. Fish is the same idea. I have not done a whole lot of saltwater fishing, but I've done quite a bit of fishing. And when you're getting your lure together, I used to fish real hard when I was a youngster, and man, I spent a lot of money. I still will buy lures. I haven't done much fishing lately, but if I go to some place, academy or somewhere, and they got good-looking lures, I'll buy some. And you get that lure, you get one that has a real colorful skirt. You know, that's the piece that hangs over the hook. So you have the skirt on there, and you can find some that have a rattle. You know, as you're putting them through the water, they'll make a little bit of noise. And you get one that has a blade on it. You know, you get a gold or silver, and so it's going to be real shiny and flashy. You see that going through the water. And you can get some. Sometimes you can spray them, and they'll have a scent. You know, it'll smell a certain way. So when that fish, when he's out there and it sees that thing coming, it sees that flashy skirt, the light hitting it. It feels the vibration of water, that spinner, let's say, that's on that lure as it goes by. It sees the flash. It smells, you know, that stink pretty you put on there. It gets all that aroma going. So it sees it, and it feels it, and it wants it, and it hits it. It sees everything except the hook. And that's how the devil is. And the devil has been fishing in this pool of mankind for millennia. The devil is in no way a god. The devil is not in any way omniscient. In fact, in a sense, the book of James tells us, resist the devil and he'll flee from you. We are stronger than the devil, and we are. But the devil is persistent. And the devil knows how we are. And the devil knows that we can easily be distracted, just like that big old bass laying up there, up in the lily pads that you're about to coax out of there with that lure. I want to appeal to your brain to start with for a second with one comment, then I'm going to go into the points of this evening's lesson. On my way down here, of course, traveling the interstate quite a bit, and there's quite a few truck stops. They've come a long way in my day. But have you ever gone into a truck stop on the interstate, one of those not real nice, you know, Love's advertises clean restrooms? Well, have you ever gone into one of the other kind? And you go in there and you find one of those stalls in there, and it has been used hard. And there it is in all of its glory. Can you imagine if you took you a big old yellow sponge like you wash your car with, and you dropped it off in that toilet, and then you picked it up out of that gooey, nasty toilet water, and you squeezed it? What's going to come out of there? Nasty toilet water. Friends, make no mistake about it. James 1 verse 17 says that every good gift and every perfect gift comes down from the Father of lights, in whom there is no variation nor shadow of turning. When you squeeze the devil, that's your other option. All that comes out of the devil are bad things. I don't know why we are so easily seduced by the devil and called into him, because he offers things he doesn't have. The devil cannot give you contentment. He has none of that. The devil can't give you happiness. He can't give you a good marriage. He can't give you success. He can't give you a guilt-free conscience. He can't give you contentment. He can give you death. He can give you divorce. He can give you disease. He can give you eternal damnation. There's nothing good in the devil. You understand that? I use the illustration so you won't forget it. When you grab the devil and squeeze him, all that comes out is bad stuff, because that's all he's got. He cannot give you what he does not have, and you cannot get from him what he does not possess. All of the good things of life come from God. All of the good things of life come from the way of truth. That's why that lesson from Genesis through Revelation is so consistent. Elijah hit it right on the head there at Mount Carmel. How long will you halt, or how long shall you limp between two positions? If God be God, serve him. If Baal be God, serve him. But friends, if God be God, then serve him. All the good things, even the word good is a derivative, comes from the word God. It's the same root word. So I want you to burn into your head, every time that you do sin, I want you to know up front, hey, dummy, you can't get from this what you think you're going to get from this. It cannot give you anything good. It cannot end in any way well. Cannot happen by the very nature of who he is. You think about Matthew chapter 4, 1 through 11, whenever he went to Christ and tried to tempt him, and he offers him things. Oh, if you'll do this, I'll give you that. If you fall down, I'll give you the kings of men. That's a lie. Remember in John chapter 8, Christ says the devil was a liar from the beginning and a murderer. We talked about the book of Daniel this morning, Daniel chapter 4. Whom did Nebuchadnezzar come to realize gave the kingdoms of men to whomsoever he saw fit? God. The kingdoms of men aren't the devil's to give. He couldn't give Jesus kingdoms of men because they're not his to give. He couldn't make Jesus Christ the ruler of all the earth if he bowed before him, because it wasn't his to give. He wasn't able to do that. And just ponder that next time that we think about trying to go after something he gives us. But what are the traps that he uses? How does he come at us? Well, there are several ways. I've got several of them here in my list of things to go over tonight. The first of which I'm going to talk about is money. The devil can get us to not be faithful to God sometimes by dangling dollar bills in front of us. Brethren, we are so blessed in this country. When you stop and look around what we've got, it is truly amazing. I don't feel guilty for the possessions God has given us, but brethren, we have a lot. And if we ever sit back and try to play this poor me concept, this idea, well, I don't have this, I don't have that, I can't afford this, can't afford that. You talk to people, they talk, well, it's just hard to get by right now. The things are tight. 1985, the average size house was 1,100 square feet. 2025, the average house, 2005, the average house is 2,700 square feet. Y'all grew up in smaller houses than you have now. I did too. And they weren't built like they're built now, were they? And we did just fine. We've got bigger houses. We got flat screen TVs. We got leather couches. I said TVs, not TV. I'm not near as old as H.D. Simmons is out there. I'm not near as old as a bunch of y'all are, but I still remember the first TV we ever had was a black and white. We finally got a color TV, and then we got pretty wealthy finally. We got a 24-inch color TV. You remember that? And then they had this monster, this 32-inch thing came out. Wow, that was huge. There are computer monitors now that are bigger than that people work on all day. And we have these flat screen TV that we measure in feet, not inches anymore. I'm not against those things, but brethren, if we're not careful, the pursuit of those kinds of goods, it cuts into our time, it cuts into our energy, it cuts into our effort. When it comes to the church, if we're not careful, pursuing those things can cost us our souls. In 1 Timothy 6 and verse 9, we're told there, but godliness with contentment is great gain. How many people are truly content? In fact, Paul goes on to say, it is certain we brought nothing into this world and we will take nothing out. How many of us get so caught up in trying to pursue things? I like what he says here about godliness and contentment. I'll just ask this question. You can ponder it in your own mind. Are you content? There are some people, they are never content. Now, staying on this point when it comes to money, how much do you need? Just a little bit more. You know, they'll change jobs, they'll change locations, they'll do this, they'll do that. They're always pursuing just a little bit more, a little bit more. Are we ever truly content? You know, you get up from the lunch table and you ask your mama or you ask your wife, what's for supper? And you just got through eating. Let what you ate settle first. We need to make sure that with godliness and contentment is great gain. Ephesians 5 and verse 3, they were told, let not covetousness be named once among you. Worked for a guy one time, and we had no lawnmower, just a push mower that wouldn't work. You know, we'd patched it up several times, it wouldn't work. And he had me throw it in the dumpster. But as I went out there to throw it away, he followed me out there, and he had a ball-peen hammer with him. And he took that hammer, and he broke up the small pieces on the lawnmower before we threw it in the trash can. You know why? He was worried that that night, some poor guy in that neighborhood would see that lawnmower in there, go fish it out, take it home, patch it up, and either use it or sell it for $10, $12 at some garage sale. The idea of somebody making a little bit of money off of his leftovers bothered him. Brethren, that's a shame and a disgrace. I would to God that people could take our trash and do something with it. Why would I resent someone else being able to get something of value from something of mine? I have quite a bit of livestock, have over the years. I've done a lot of cattle trading. I've been around a lot of folks like this, and you may be this kind of person. You're the kind of guy that says, oh, I got a good deal on that car, or I got a good deal on this cow trade, or I got a good deal here. I got my full price. Have you ever known folks that it bothers them if they don't come out on top in their own mind when it comes to a business trade? Christians, why can't the other guy have the better deal? Why can't you sell that bull or those cows or that set of goats or that piece of equipment for a good price for the other guy? Why can't the other guy say, I did business with Christian so-and-so, and he made me a really good bargain on that tractor. He sold me that set of cattle at a price that I could actually make a good profit and take care of my family. If it bothers us, the Bible says covetousness. I'm trying to make this real for you. Does it bother you to pay full price? Why not? Why not let the other guy get the better deal? There's something wrong with us, brethren. I'm telling you, this is not a joke. If it just bothers you and gets in your sleep and you cannot function unless you got them to come down on their price, or you got them to make you a better deal, or you feel like you got the better end of this situation, something's wrong with you. Why would a Christian who wants to sing about living like Jesus and being like Jesus and serving the world like we should, why would it bother? I'll tell you why it's called covetousness. That I simply cannot let the other guy get the better end of the deal. I've made a few deals where I sold some goats one time to a guy. He wanted to buy the whole seed. He bought like 200 a head. And as he was leaving, my oldest boy, he was old enough, he was still a kid, but he was old enough to kind of know, he said, my daddy, we could have got more money for that set of goats if we'd have gone to the sale barn with them than what you just sold them for. I said, well, that's probably true. I said, but on the other hand, I'd have to make it's 55 miles one way to the sale barn. I'd have to make 2 trips down there and back, drive 200 miles. I got to take a whole day off work to get that kind of stuff done, pay a commission down there. And I told him, and where's it written the other guy can't get a good deal? I'm just saying, think about that. Well, that's bad business. I ain't discussing business. I'm discussing Christianity. I'm discussing our hearts. Why do we feel like something is off if we don't always get the better deal? I used to kind of haggle back and forth. I don't haggle anymore. If I came up to Larry and I wanted to buy something, he got a truck for sale. How much you want for that truck? He tells me. I'll either buy it or I won't buy it. But I'm not going to sit here and try to play, poor mouth him and talk him down to a lower price necessarily. I'm just saying that's something to think about, but sometimes we don't think about that in that way. Colossians 3 and verse 5 says that that covetousness is as idolatry. If you're always thinking about money and you can never get off the billfold to do something, some people, they'll make their kids feel guilty, they'll make their wife feel guilty. You spent how much? Those shoes cost what? That purse costs what? How many purses do you have in there in that closet, by the way? I didn't count because Kelly probably beat me up if I do. But One time I made a comment when I was preaching somewhere. I said, I bet my wife's got 25 pairs of shoes. And she kind of got mad that I said that in front of the whole church. She went home and she counted. She informed me she did not have 25 pairs of shoes. She only had 23. Well, the average guy probably has a pair of tennis shoes, a good pair of boots, a pair of work boots, maybe a dress shoe. 4 or 5 pair, we're done. Now, I know, girls, that's not fair, because y'all have to have outfits, right? We have to have the dress, and then the shoe, and then the belt, and then the bag, and I've been married a long time, I understand. But I'm saying, husbands, seriously, don't make your wife feel badly about buying something. Wives, don't ride him about buying another fishing pole. I happen to notice that Larry's got a whole row of them in his garage. He doesn't need any more fishing poles, but he'll probably buy some more one of these days. Kelly, be generous. But we can take all the fun out of it. Some of y'all have kids that play softball and baseball. We talked about this morning. Those bats are expensive. Those gloves are expensive. Those shoes are expensive. And you will one day wish you had your kids back for one more summer of softball and baseball. Forget the money, live your life, enjoy the moment, and don't rob the joy of your family over things that are physical in nature. Now, I'm not saying be foolish. That's not this sermon, though. I'm talking about covetousness right now. You can be the other way and not have any sense when it comes to finances, and that's a whole other topic. Don't be covetous. Matthew 6, verse 23, Christ gets to the heart of it. He says, there no man can serve 2 masters. Either you will love the one and hate the other, or hold to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and riches. How many kids have we lost over the years because they leave high school and go to college to go get some high-powered education in some city that doesn't have a good church in it? My youngest son won a scholarship to Harvard. We went up there a couple of years ago. He did a week-long thing up there. I wouldn't let him go to Harvard if he won a free scholarship for all 4 years. You ought to try to find a church in Boston. You can't. We found something similar. It wasn't really the church. It was a problem. The point is, but pursuit of money. You ever had this conversation? I got me a new job. Where are you going? Well, I'm going to XYZ town. How's the church up there? Well, I don't know if there's a church up there. Then don't take the job. How does it cross a Christian's mind to take their family, move somewhere? I tell you why. Because they're following the God of Mammon. And when you bring it up, you're that weirdo that brought up church. I'm saying for a Christian, it's all about church. It's all about spiritual matters. What is primary, one of the elders alluded to it this morning, Matthew 6:33. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these things shall be added unto you. That's the physical things. Verse 34, by the way, says, and take no thought for tomorrow, or be not anxious for tomorrow, for sufficient to the day is the evil thereof. There'll be enough to worry about later when that day gets here. But his point is, financially, you're going to be okay as long as you stay with God. You ever notice how your stomach can't tell the difference 5 minutes after you're full, whether you're full of steak or beans? It doesn't matter. You're satisfied. Belly's full, you're good for 5 or 6 or 7 hours, or however long till the next meal shows up. We lose our minds sometimes. We make these life-altering decisions based on nothing more than money. And sometimes we lose our kids, sometimes we lose our spouses, sometimes we lose our souls in the pursuit of money. And such should not be the case. I like Luke 12, verse 15. Again, Christ talking, take heed and beware of covetousness. And then Christ again, well, I didn't finish what ago. When Christ said about the two can't serve God and mammon, Matthew 6:19, lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor, I skipped 19, it was 20. 19, lay not up for yourselves treasures on the earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt, where thieves break through and steal, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, where thieves do not break through and steal. Here's the kicker from Jesus. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. You're going to think about what's most important to you. And if money is most important to you, that's what you're going to think about. Have any of you people, I sort of say men, but I know now men and women both kind of work sometimes the same kind of schedules. Have you ever been at work just daydreaming about your vacation? I cannot wait to get out of here and go wherever I'm going to go. Other folks, I guess, want to go to the beach. I guess y'all want to go to the mountains or something. Well, anyway, we want to get away from here. We want to get away from work. And then you go on vacation. Have you ever been on vacation? I wonder what's happening at the office. You're checking your email. You're making phone calls. So when you're at play, you think about work. And when you're at work, you think about play. The trouble is, what Christ is saying here, what I value the most is where my thoughts are going to be. And there's so much more to life than thinking about money. But a lot of folks are always doing that. Back to Luke 12 passage, he says, a man's life consisteth of more than just the things that he possesses. Your stuff is not the measure of man. I would consider myself a great failure if I die with $2 or $3 million in the bank. Money is here to be spent. It's here to be used for good. But the idea of hoarding it up, what good? It doesn't do you any good. Maybe somebody coming next will do something good with it. Maybe not. It's just a mindset. Think about that idea of covetousness, the money trap. Then there are those that get caught up. This is big in our day too. The devil gets some of us pursuing money. He gets others wanting to be accepted by the majority. I'm not into social media at all. I can barely even name the stuff like Twitter. Well, see, it's X now, whatever that's called. Snapchat, Facebook, whatever, you old people, MySpace back in the day. But all this online stuff. I don't care. But there are people that do care. It bothers them not to get a like and to get a dislike. Oh, they just hate that. Well, I sent you a picture. Where's my like or dislike? I don't dislike you. I'll just delete you altogether. I don't even care. But people care about what folks think. And you have influencers. Those are idiots sitting behind a camera somewhere who somehow, they send a picture out or some food out or some little trend out and so-and-so likes that or whatever. But people do care about getting blocked on Twitter, or they do care about getting their posts pulled down. They do care about what people think about them. In Matthew chapter 7, 13 and 14, Christ said, enter ye in at the strait gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leads to destruction. And many there be that go in thereat. But straight is the gate, and narrow is the way that goes to life, and few that be that find it. If you walk with the majority, you're walking straight into perdition. The vast majority of the world is not saved. Peter would tell us we are to be a peculiar people. We're not like everybody else. Matthew 5, 13 through 16, Christ would say, you be the salt of the earth. You be the light of the world. Men don't light a candle and put it under a bushel, rather on a candlestick where it gives light to the whole house. You're like a city set upon a hill that cannot be hid. We are not like the world. Exodus 23 and verse 23. Thou shalt not follow a multitude to do evil. If you stand with Jesus, you will always stand in the minority. If you stand with truth, you'll always be on the side with God. Think about Noah's Ark. How many folks got in the boat? 8. How many drowned? All the rest of them. The vast majority of the world's population died in that flood. When Jesus and Barabbas stood there on that stage, and we discussed this morning briefly, Pilate, what shall I do with Barabbas? Turn him loose. A murdering, seditious thief. We want him. What about Christ? Crucify him. The crowd said, crucify Jesus. You read those contexts, there doesn't seem to be much controversy in the crowd. It seems to be unanimous. What about this one? Kill him. What about that one? Let him go. Was that a righteous rendering? No. We can't worry about what does everybody else think. If that even crosses your mind, you're already thinking wrong. Truth is truth and right is right, and you determine to do what's right. People who appreciate that will stand with you. The ones that don't matter anyway. All my life in the church, there's been a vocal group sometimes. Well, what are people going to think if we do X? Who cares? You have non-Christian, non-Bible believing, non-Bible following sinners, and we're going to sit back and change the church's courses of actions based on what the town might think about it? Forget that nonsense. Who cares? We're going to do what the Word of God says and not be overly concerned about what the majority of people around us are doing. Then you have the minute trap. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this on Tuesday night, so I'll just hit this in very lightly today. But Colossians 4 and verse 5, walk in wisdom, redeeming the time. Hebrews 3 and verse 13, we are exhorting you to daily, while it is today. 2 Corinthians 6 and verse 2, now is the acceptable time. Don't put things off. I wonder how many folks are going to be in hell one of these days who, while on this earth, eventually we're going to become a Christian. You've had those conversations. I'll come to church with you one of these days. I'll go with you one of these days. And they put it off. And before they know it, they're pulled off into other things. I'll come back to this one on Tuesday night. I don't want to do much time on this right now. Then you have the mouth trap. If you picked up on this, all of these are M so far, okay? We got the money trap, majority trap, the minute trap, and the mouth trap. We run our mouths way too much. I only jotted down 4 or 5 of these. There's probably 50 of them in the book of Proverbs. Proverbs 6 and verse 2, we are snared by the words of our mouth. You ever talk to yourself into a problem? Man, when I was a kid growing up, you know, I might have had been instructed, you don't have to say everything's in your mind, but I've never had the ability to not say it anyway. I've been grounded, I've been busted, I'm the guy I got licks twice in high school my senior year. I was valedictorian in my high school and got whooped twice by the superintendent when I was in high school. Mostly because I couldn't shut up. They'd say something, somebody would say something, some teacher say something, I'd pop off. One time I was getting licks in junior high. She busted me inside the class, but that wasn't a good thing. Boys, you got to show them how tough you are. So I got my hands on the chalkboard, I'm getting my licks, and she tore me up. I got 3 or 4. And then I finally said, all right, Miss Smith, whenever you're ready. Whoo, she lit me up then. Man, she quit playing. And if there had been girls in that room, I might have cried. But I popped off. The point is, it's a mouth trap. You overloaded what you could do. Daddy used to call it having an alligator mouth and a hummingbird rear end. Sometimes you could talk yourself into stuff you couldn't quite handle when it came to dealing with the situation. But the Bible deals with that very seriously, being careful what we say. Proverbs 12:13, the wicked is ensnared by his mouth. Proverbs 18, verse 7, the fool's lips are a snare to him. Proverbs 10, verse 19, in the multitude of sin, in the multitude of words, there's no lack of sins. Proverbs 17:28, even a fool, when he holds his words, is considered wise. The one that scares me is Matthew 12:35, 6 and 7. 6 and 7. 36 and 7. When Christ says, every idle word that a man shall speak, he shall give an account thereof in the day of judgment. For by thy words thou shalt be justified, and by thy words thou shalt be condemned. Some people are careless with their language. There are some people that get very, very critical with their tongue. If they are speaking to you at all, they are putting you down. They are insulting you. They are stabbing you in the back. They are turning the knife. You ever heard this? Well, if you ask me, listen, nobody asked you. Keep it to yourself. We were told by the Apostle Paul, speak those words which edify. If what I'm about to say will not help you be a better father, husband, wife, child, whatever you're doing, if it won't encourage you in some way. Now, I may be giving you some constructive criticism, but it will be constructive criticism, trying to correct you, to make you better and be more successful at what you're doing. But be careful with words. How many marriages have been harmed irreparably by a hard word said? How many kids have popped off and said things to their parents that are very hurtful? Listen, I can prove this very quickly. I suspect everybody in this room, right now in your mind, go ahead and go where I'm going to send you. We have all been told something said to us. It might have been by a parent when we were little bitty. It might have been by a teacher or by a coach. It might have been by a loved one. But you can remember, you right now could probably call to memory some things said to you that to this very moment, decades later, it still hurts. It left a mark. The Bible speaks about the wounds of the words. You know how the Bible says a word fitly spoken is like golden apples on silver platters. You know what? A bad word, unfitly spoken, an insult, a criticism, a condemning, harsh, critical word, hypercritical word, that leaves a mark as well, and it's not a good mark. It's not a good thing. By thy words thou shalt be justified, and by thy words thou shalt be condemned. I'll give you an illustration. You little kiddos tonight, when you get home, go in the bathroom and get you a brand new tube of toothpaste and squeeze all the toothpaste out on the counter in the bathroom. And then take your finger and put all that toothpaste back in that tube. It doesn't work, does it? You can't put it back. You know, that's how words are. I can say something to you that's very hurtful. Now, I can apologize, and I can be sorry for it, and I can wish I didn't do it, but I can never really take them back. Those wounds are always there. Our mouth can get us into trouble. And there are sometimes, James, the book of James in particular, talks about how we should be swift to hear, but slow to speak and slow to anger. My dad's dead now, but he's one of the smartest guys I ever knew. He used to say, son, he said, God put 2 fences around that tongue of yours, one of ivory and one of flesh. Trying to tell you something. He also gave you 2 eyes and 2 ears. You should look and listen twice as much as you talk. If we're not careful, we'll start yapping, and we will talk ourselves into trouble, and or we get bitter inside, we get mean inside, we get nasty inside, and we want to wound other people, and we say stuff we shouldn't say. They would say, I'm sorry. No, you're not sorry. Christ said, what's in your heart, though, will come out. You let that sink in. You start harboring bad things inside your mind, it's going to come out. As a man thinks in his heart, so is he. At the moment you said, oh, I didn't mean to say that, Jimmy. No, at that moment, I did want to say that. I wanted to wound you. I wanted to shut you up and put you in your place. Now, when the consequences of that begin to come back to me, maybe I want to smooth that out and say I'm sorry, and maybe I am sorry later on. Be careful. That mouth trap can get us in a lot of trouble. The devil has ruined a lot of people. How many people quit going to church? Now, I'm going to do 2 things on this. But the reason they quit going was what somebody said. I've heard some stupid stuff. This happened at Bangs one time years ago. We had a kid that had gone off, he wasn't even from Bangs, from the area, who'd gone off to college, several hundred miles away. And he'd come back about a year later to our gospel meeting. He drove over 100 miles to come to the meeting. And the kid had put on a few pounds. They call it the freshman 15 or whatever. He hadn't just blown up, but he'd gained a little bit of weight. And one of our members said, well, looks like you haven't been pushing back away from the table. Well, just say, hey, fatty, come on in. I mean, who talks like that? What's the point of that? That's not going to help anybody. Somebody comes, well, your hair is kind of falling out. Listen, I've always heard there's only 2 kinds of hair anyway. There's that which turns gray and that which turns loose. It's all going to, eventually, the body's going to wear out anyway. You get out of bed enough. You put your feet on the ground, stand up enough days in a row, and eventually everything you got starts sagging, dragging, and bagging, right? It just falls apart. That's how this body is. And you live long enough, you're going to die one of these days. That happens too. So when you walk in, don't say, well, you're looking old today. Stop. You don't have to say anything. Just be quiet. I tell folks I used to be blonde-headed. Then I got brown-headed, and now I'm what I call platinum blonde or Arctic blonde. It's going back the other way again. I also tell my barber, I'm not bald-headed, but I use a much different size thing on this side of my head than I do the top of my head. I get a sunburn now. It's a lot thinner than it used to be. That's part of it. But in all seriousness, don't be mean. Don't be petty. Now, by the way, I sometimes ask this question. People get mad. I've had members of church, oh, yeah, so-and-so, talking about a preacher sometime. That preacher one time, he said this, and somebody quit the church and left. No, they left the church because they wanted to. That's 1 John 2, verse 19. The Holy Spirit through John says, you know why people leave? They leave because they want to. That verse says, they went out from us because they were not of us. Had they been of us, they would have remained, but they left that it might be made manifest that they were not of us. That's a real wordy way of saying they left because they wanted to. But I can contribute. I can put them in a situation, but I'll ask you this question. What would someone have to do to you to get you to quit the church? That should be nothing. They can beat you, they can slap you, they can imprison you, they can kill you, but they can't drive you away from Jesus. But that's not the same question as this. What might have to make you leave the Portland congregation? There could be an answer for that one. Say, sometimes if we mistreat people, we can drive them to a different location. Now again, I'm not saying sometimes it's their issue that causes it, but my point is be careful. Be careful what we say. Be careful how we say things. The mouth trap. Then you get to the me trap. The idea that everything revolves around me. Now this is complicated because, truth be told, and I'm telling it, I do see the world from my perspective, and you see the world from your perspective. It's kind of like the discussion. Y'all have a few announcements this morning about upcoming surgeries. Do y'all know the best definition I've ever heard of the distinction between minor surgery and major surgery? Minor surgery is the one you're having. Major surgery is the one I'm having, right? That's kind of how this goes, So big problem, little problem. That's kind of how this works sometimes. So it's one thing, we do see the world through our eyes. We do experience the world through our past experiences. I understand all that. But I can't just be concerned about me. I've got to also care about other people. Proverbs 29, verse 23. A man's pride shall bring him low. I talked about Daniel chapter 4 this morning about Nebuchadnezzar. My Babylon, which I have built for my glory. I mentioned fishing a while ago. So we're going to have fishing. We're going to tell fishing stories. And there's no saying the first man ain't got a chance. But anyway, so I start talking about my fish. Maybe I'll use one of these little kids. One of these little kids goes fishing. and they catch their first catfish, and it's a big one. I mean, it's almost a pound, right? And they're so proud. Pawpaw, look at my fish. You know what Pawpaw should do? That's a good fish, son. Wow, I'm proud of you. What do we sometimes do, though? I use 1 pound fish for bait. By the way, don't use catfish for bait. That's against the rules. But I don't know why. Can't use bait fish to catch fish. I don't understand that. We can have that discussion later, but you can't. But here's my point. So somebody does something well, but I've got to kind of one-up them just a little bit. Well, that's a pretty good fish, but my fish is bigger than that. That's a pretty good deer, but I shot a big one. That's a pretty good thing your kid did, but my kid did this. Why? Why, again, can't the other person just have their moment? Let them talk about their fish. Let them talk about what their kid did on the ball field. Let them talk about what they accomplished. Again, this is about me, see? Well, if you knew how good a fisherman I was, how good a hunter I was, how fast my kids were, how many state trap meet medals I've got in my closet, which is kind of funny, too. It's where they are. You know, when you're a kid, it's the most important thing in the world. Now you can't even find the stuff, right? It's just piled up somewhere with the stuff of life. But that's another indicator of what's wrong with us. When someone starts telling you a story about something in their life, do you automatically go into the mode of, well, let me tell you my story. Let me tell you about my situation, to where it winds up being bigger than theirs. Heard about this idea of tooting our own horn. Old Jerry Clyre said when we toot our own horn, we usually get the pitch way too high. Out where I live, we have some droughts pretty regular. We call it summertime. But anyway, the things dry up in the summer. And I heard about this, these 2 ducks and this frog. This tank dried up. And the ducks were getting ready to fly off in that tank and head, y'all might call those ponds over here. I grew up, they're called tanks. But anyway, they're going to leave a small tank and go to a bigger lake. And that frog said, that's fine for y'all, but I'm going to dehydrate. I'm going to die. I'm going to burn up and just die here in this tank. So they said, well, what can we do? We're ducks. We don't have any claws. We can't pick you up. He said, well, see that stick right there? I'll grab that stick in my mouth, and y'all grab it in y'all's beaks, and y'all can fly me that way. I'll hold it on the middle, y'all hold the ends, and y'all can fly me to the next tank. So they agreed, and they got him on there. And they take off flying, that big old bullfrog. He's hanging there by that stick, and those ducks, they're holding that stick flying, and they fly over a farmer about 250 feet off the ground, and that farmer says, man, that was a pretty ingenious idea. I wonder whose idea it was. That frog says, mine. Splat. Well, can we be that way sometime? You know, we got to have credit, and that's hard too. But brethren, when it comes to taking credit, let God have the glory. Just get the job done, and don't be worried about me so much. Then we have what's called the misery trap. I love this thought. And this one kind of hits close to home a little bit too to us, I think, because of our culture. Genesis chapter 3, the devil, this is called the misery trap. The devil actually was able to convince Eve while she literally was living and walking in the Garden of Eden. She's living in paradise. He convinces her she's miserable. Ladies, she's married to the greatest man to ever live, the only man that God ever made, the best one of all men. She's got him. And she's miserable. He convinces her that somehow she's missing out. If you just ate of that fruit, of that tree, then you'd have a real good time. How does it get better than the Garden of Eden? No stickers, no laundry to wash, ever, right? You got a good man, everything's perfect. He convinced her she was miserable. I've known some members of the Lord's church. They have been miserable every day I've known them. Known them 30, 40 years. How you doing? Oh, it's bad. It's just not good. Listen, you cannot have a bad day every day for 75 years. That's not permitted. It can't be that bad all the time. There's got to be a good day at some time. You ever heard this one? How you feeling? Well, I'm feeling okay, but I'm sure I'll get over it. Well, you know, that kind of betrays that mentality. They were just looking for something to bellyache about. But being miserable, I'll tell you, now this is true. It's pretty traumatic. This happened to me about a week ago. I was in town. I went by to get my wife a drink at McDonald's, and I pulled up to that speaker, and I had to wait at least 8-9 seconds. It was horrible, right? But we do get back. You know, what's taking so long? You ever sit there at the restaurant and you're banging on your tea glass? Ding, 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 ding. I need a refill. Poor girl's got 5 tables she's waiting on. 5 people at every table, and you're over there acting like a fool, banging on your cup. You know, wanting her to give you some tea. That kind of goes back to that me deal, doesn't it? But some folks are miserable unless everything in the whole area revolves around them. You know what kind of Christian you really are? I'm serious about this. How do you treat your waitress? Do you treat them like a person, or are you a jerk to them? Do you fuss about everything? Get back over here. You know, me, ding, ding, ding. Beating on the glasses. You got to take care of me right now. How about the checkout girl at Walmart? Or H-E-B, I guess you've got H-E-B in here. Do you ignore them or you actually engage them? You might be surprised if you walked up and say, well, how's your day been today? Sometimes they'll say, man, thank you so much for asking. By the way, I can make you a better customer in a restaurant. You don't need to get, if you don't have them, if you have some, get some. If you don't, make you some business cards for the church, say Portland Church of Christ, with the phone number on there. And when you give your tip, you leave that card as well. It'll make you tip better, make you behave better. He mentioned this morning in my radio program, I've been on the radio for a long time in Brownwood. I've got to behave in Brownwood. Apparently my voice is fairly distinct after 30 years. They know who I am. Oh, you're that guy off that radio. I can't be a jerk now because they know who I am. I'll give you an example and I'll move to my next point. I was at the bank one time, and this is back when you still went inside the banks. Nowadays, they just take a picture and you're done. But I'm in line. We had lines, young people, at the bank. And there I stood to make a deposit. And there's 3 or 4 folks. There's people in front of me. There's 3 or 4 booths open. And there's a little old lady at the line in front of me, has her cane, and she is moving like molasses. I mean, it was horrible. I'm in a hurry. It's like 3:20. I got to get the kids. I'm already late for the pickup line. I'm having one of those days. And here she is. And she finally gets her checkbook out. She can't write it. Her hand shook so bad. She has to have the lady write the check out, and then she signs it. And I'm back there. I'm standing nice and still. But inside, I'm dying. Oh, come on, woman. Get it done already. She finally makes her little deposit. And she's about to mercifully turn away. And the woman behind the screen, Mrs. Linda Gray, I remember that woman like she was yesterday. She says, well, how are your grandkids? Oh, honey, let me show you. And she starts digging for pictures. While she's digging for pictures, her cane falls. I've been down to pick it up to hand it to her. Not because I'm a gentleman, but because I want to hurry her along. So I hand her the cane. And she said, oh, thank you so much, Sonny. I've just got to know your name. Put your hand out, shake my hand. I said, I'm Michael Light. Michael Light, are you that Church of Christ preacher on the radio? I just love your preaching. And all up and down the aisle. Oh, me too, me too, me too. Good to see you. And that was a get right in your own head moment for me. If I'd have been acting on the outside the way I was feeling on the inside, I would have hurt the church that day. I'm serious. I would have hurt the church image badly. Brethren, we need to slow down, keep first things first. It's not all about me. This idea, I'm not miserable because I have to stand in line at an air-conditioned bank for 5 minutes to make a stinking deposit. And we got something to deposit on top of that, right? We got things that are going very well. My kids call these things first world problems. Don't you just hate it when your internet goes out and your streaming starts moving slow? Now, these gray-headed ones in here are laughing because it wasn't that long ago. We didn't even have cell phones, did we? Didn't have them at all. Can't imagine life now without them. The final one, I'm just going to give you one verse on this one, or maybe a couple. This is the mediocrity trap. Don't be mediocre. You know, the Bible teaches us, whatever your hand finds to do, Ecclesiastes 9, verse 10, whatever your hand finds to do, do with all your might. The devil can ensnare us because he convinces us, well, you better know so-and-so. What you're doing is good enough. God is not the God of good enough. Malachi chapter 1 and verse 6, a son honors his father and a servant his master. If I be your father, where is my honor? If I be your master, where is my fear? Later he would say, you have robbed me. And they said, how have we robbed you? You have robbed me in sacrifices. You gave me crippled, lame, blind sheep. They were under Persian rule by now. He says, give your Persian overlord the sacrifices you give me and see if he'll take it. Question, brethren. Did any of us give God a blind sheep this morning at worship? Did we give him our best? Did we sing out from our heart with all that we have? Did we focus with our mind where the Word of God's being read? Did we gather around that Lord's Supper today in our mind and see Christ on that cross and get where we need to be spiritually for that moment? Whatever your hand finds to do, do with all your might. Colossians 3 says, whatever you do, do it heartily unto the Lord. Give God your best. I don't care how sorry someone else is in their service to God. I don't make mine smell any better by acting like them. I need to give God my best. I won't be judged by giving God more than what you gave him. I'll be judged by God for giving him of the talent pool he's given me. If God has blessed you Whatever God has given you, whatever your capabilities, you give God your best. If you will bloom where you're planted, do the best you can with what you've got all the time, you will not be mediocre. I do not like what I see in our culture currently. I have to hire employees from time to time, and right now, anybody who shows up 5 days a week, that's a good person to have on your staff right now. There was a time when showing up was expected. You had to actually do the work when you were there too. Don't become, just because our culture may be getting lazy, getting sorry, getting mediocre when it comes to effort put into jobs and school and so forth, don't you dare accept that in your own commitment to God. The devil's out there. He's fishing. He's trying his best to pull us into these snares. Let's make sure that we don't get tripped up. Friend, if you're not a child of God, he's got you right now. To become one, you got to believe in Jesus, repent of your past sins, confess your faith in him, and be baptized for remission of your sins. As a Christian, that's who I was talking to today. Don't think for a second, just because you're a child of God, that he quits coming after us. The Bible is full of examples of men and women who were faithful in their youth but fell away in their older years. Let's don't let the devil sneak up on us and ensnare us in these trivial, these are big, ugly sins, but these are the kind of ones I struggle with sometimes. These are the ones that cause us issues sometimes. What was it the proverb said, and the lesson is yours? Didn't Solomon say, it's the little foxes that tear up the vines? It's the little sins that sometimes we let sneak into our heart, get into our mind, get into our attitudes, and change us from what we should be. You respond to the Lord's invitation. Please do so now. Together we stand and as we sing.